Man United transfer news. Why Elliot Anderson could be the January signing that changes everything. Welcome back to United News, where we bring you the transfer stories that matter most to Manchester United fans. When the rumor mill starts spinning, you can trust us to separate the facts from the fiction. Today we're diving into one of the biggest transfer stories brewing for January, and it could be exactly what United need. The big question: is Elliot Anderson the midfield answer United have been looking for? Every United fan knows the story by now. Our midfield has been a problem area for months. We tried to fix it in the summer but came up empty. Now, with January just around the corner, a new name has emerged as the potential solution to all our problems. Elliot Anderson, the 22-year-old Nottingham Forest midfielder who has been turning heads across the Premier League. But can United really pull off this deal? And more importantly, is Anderson the right player to transform our midfield? Let's break down everything you need to know about this exciting transfer possibility. The summer that never was. Before we talk about Anderson, we need to understand why United are back in the transfer market for a midfielder. The summer transfer window was supposed to solve our midfield problems once and for all. Brighton's Carlos Baleba, the one that got away. United's top target was Carlos Baleba from Brighton. The young midfielder had everything we were looking for: pace, power, and the ability to break up play. Ruben Amorim and his team watched him for months and decided he was perfect for our system. But Brighton had other ideas. The Seagulls made it crystal clear that Baleba would not be sold. Not for any price. Not this year. They told United to wait at least another year before even thinking about making a bid. This was a huge blow. When you identify your number one target and they become completely unavailable, it throws all your plans out the window. United had to scramble to find alternatives. Deadline day drama with Conor Gallagher. As the summer window was closing, United made a desperate attempt to sign Conor Gallagher from Atletico Madrid. The England midfielder had just moved to Spain, but United hoped they could convince Atletico to let him go on loan. The proposal was simple: take Gallagher on loan for a season, give him Premier League football, and everyone wins. But Atletico Madrid weren't interested. They had just signed Gallagher and had no intention of letting him leave immediately. This left United with no midfield signing at all. Fans were frustrated. The team clearly needed reinforcements, but the club couldn't make it happen. Why the midfield search continues. So here we are in September, and the midfield problems haven't gone away. In fact, they might have gotten worse. Casemiro is getting older and slower. The Brazilian was once one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, but Father Time catches up with everyone. He's no longer the player who can dominate games week after week. Manuel Ugarte was supposed to be the answer. United signed him to provide that defensive stability in midfield, but this season he's looked out of place. His performances have been disappointing, and Amorim has started leaving him out of the team. This is why United are back in the market. They need someone who can do what Casemiro used to do and what Ugarte was supposed to do. Enter Elliot Anderson. According to reports from Team Talk, United have identified their new target, Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest. But who exactly is this player, and why are United so interested? The Newcastle connection. Anderson's story begins at Newcastle United. He came through their youth system and was seen as one of their brightest prospects. The young midfielder had all the tools: good passing, strong in the tackle, and excellent work rate. But Newcastle had a problem. The Premier League's profit and sustainability rules, PSR, meant they needed to sell players to balance their books. They had to make some tough decisions about which players to keep and which ones to let go. Anderson became one of the casualties. Even though he had huge potential, Newcastle decided they could afford to sell him if the price was right. The Forest move. In the summer of 2024, Nottingham Forest stepped in with a bid of £35 million for Anderson. At the time, many people questioned whether he was worth that much money. After all, Anderson wasn't even a regular starter for Newcastle. He was still learning his trade and developing as a player. $35 million seemed like a lot of money for someone with limited first-team experience. But Forest saw something special in the young midfielder. They were willing to take the risk and invest in his potential, proving the doubters wrong. Fast forward to now, and Anderson has shown that Forest made the right decision. His debut season in the Premier League was nothing short of excellent. The stats tell the story. Anderson won 6.5 duels per league game last season. That's impressive for any midfielder, let alone someone in their first full Premier League season. He also made 5.6 recoveries per game and averaged 2.5 tackles. These numbers show that Anderson is exactly the type of player United need. He's someone who can win the ball back and give it to the more creative players. He's the shield that protects the defense and allows others to attack. International recognition. Anderson's performances haven't gone unnoticed at international level either. He recently made his England debut, which is huge recognition for a player who was barely known 18 months ago. Not only did he get his first cap, but he started in both of England's World Cup qualifying games. This shows just how highly the national team coaches rate him. Getting into the England squad from Nottingham Forest is no easy task. The competition for places is fierce, and players from smaller clubs often get overlooked. The fact that Anderson has broken through shows he's special. Why United want Anderson? So what exactly has caught United's attention? Why are they willing to spend big money on a player who was relatively unknown just a year ago? The defensive shield United need. The main reason is simple. Anderson does exactly what United's midfield is missing right now. He breaks up play and wins the ball back for his team. Look at United's recent games and you'll see the problem. Opposition teams find it too easy to play through our midfield. They can pass the ball around us and create chances without too much trouble. Anderson would change that. He's the type of player who makes it difficult for opponents to play their natural game. He hassles, he harries, he wins tackles, and he makes life uncomfortable for attacking players. Age and potential. At 22 years old, Anderson is also at the perfect age for United. He's young enough to improve and develop, but experienced enough to make an immediate impact. United have made mistakes in recent years by signing players who were either too old or too young. Anderson fits right into that sweet spot where he can contribute now while getting better over time. If United sign him, they could have their defensive midfielder sorted for the next 8 to 10 years. That's exactly the type of long-term thinking the club needs. Premier League proven. Another big advantage is that Anderson has already proven he can handle the Premier League. He's not coming from a foreign league where there might be question marks about adaptation. Anderson knows the pace, the physicality, and the demands of English football. United can sign him confident that he won't need time to adjust. The challenge of getting the deal done. Of course, wanting Anderson and actually signing him are two very different things. There are several obstacles that United will need to overcome. Forest won't want to sell. The biggest problem is that Nottingham Forest have no reason to sell Anderson. He's been one of their best players and is still improving. They invested $35 million in him just over a year ago, and that investment is paying off. Forest are also in a good position in the Premier League. They're not a club that desperately needs to sell players to balance the books. They can afford to keep their best players and build around them. The price will be high. If Forest do decide to sell, they'll want a huge profit on their investment. The report suggests they could ask for more than £60 million for Anderson. That would represent a profit of at least £25 million in just over a year. For a club like Forest, that kind of return on investment is exactly what they're looking for. But for United, $60 million is a lot of money for a player who's only had one full season in the Premier League. The club will need to decide if Anderson is worth that kind of investment. Contract situation. Anderson also has 4 years left on his contract with Forest. This gives them all the power in any negotiations. They don't need to sell, and they can set whatever price they want. United will need to make an offer that's impossible to refuse. That might mean paying well over the odds, but sometimes you have to do that to get the player you really want. Manager uncertainty at Forest. One factor that might help United is the recent change of manager at Nottingham Forest. Nuno Espirito Santo recently left the club, and there's always uncertainty when a new manager comes in. New managers often have different ideas about which players they want to keep and which ones they're willing to sell. United might be able to take advantage of this transitional period. United's January plans. According to the reports, United aren't just looking at Anderson. They have bigger plans for strengthening their midfield. 2 midfielders wanted. The club apparently wants to sign 2 midfielders, one in January and another in the summer. This shows just how seriously they're taking the need to improve in this area. Anderson would be the January signing, providing immediate help for the second half of the season. Then United would look for another midfielder in the summer to complete the transformation of their midfield. Why January makes sense. Signing Anderson in January could be perfect timing. United will have had half a season to see exactly where their weaknesses are, and Anderson could slot right into the team for the business end of the season. January signings often take time to settle in, but Anderson's Premier League experience means he could make an immediate impact. United might need him for crucial games in the Champions League and the fight for a top 4 finish. What Anderson would bring to United. Let's imagine for a moment that United do manage to sign Anderson. What would he actually bring to the team? Immediate impact in midfield. The most obvious benefit is what Anderson would do in the center of the pitch. He would give United the defensive stability they've been missing all season. With Anderson sitting in front of the defense, United's center-backs would have much more protection. Opposition attacks would have to go through him first, and his tackling and work rate would break up many attacks before they become dangerous. Allowing others to play. Anderson's defensive work would also free up other United players to focus on what they do best. Players like Bruno Fernandes could worry less about tracking back and concentrate more on creating chances. The wingers could also push forward more knowing that Anderson is there to cover if they lose the ball. This could make United much more dangerous in attack as well as more solid in defense. Leadership potential. Even though he's only 22, Anderson has already shown leadership qualities at Forest. He's the type of player who leads by example, always working hard and never giving up. United need more players like this. Too often in recent years, the team has looked like they lack fight and determination. Anderson would bring that warrior mentality that all successful teams need. The competition factor. Of course, United won't be the only club interested in Anderson if he becomes available. His performances have caught the attention of several top clubs. Other Premier League interest. Several other Premier League clubs are likely to be monitoring Anderson's situation. Teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea are always looking for young, talented midfielders. This could create a bidding war that drives Anderson's price even higher. United would need to move quickly and decisively if they want to win the race for his signature. European clubs. There's also likely to be interest from European clubs. Teams in Spain, Italy, and Germany are always keen on talented English players, especially those who are already proven in the Premier League. Anderson might be tempted by the chance to play in the Champions League regularly or to experience football in a different country. United would need to convince him that Old Trafford is the right place for his career. The financial reality. Let's talk about the money side of this potential transfer. Is Anderson worth the investment United would need to make? Value for money question. At £60 million or more, Anderson would be one of United's most expensive signings ever. The club would need to be absolutely certain that he's the right player for their system. The good news is that Anderson is young and English, which means his value is likely to hold up well, even if things don't work out perfectly. English players rarely lose value in the Premier League market. Long-term investment. If Anderson develops as expected, $60 million could look like a bargain in a few years' time. Look at how much top midfielders cost now. Players like Declan Rice went for over $100 million. If Anderson becomes United's first-choice defensive midfielder for the next decade, the fee would work out at just $6 to $7 million per year. That's excellent value for a key player. What the fans think. United fans have had mixed reactions to the Anderson links. Some are excited about the prospect of signing a young, hungry player who's already proven himself in the Premier League. The positive view. Supporters who back the move point to Anderson's work rate, his defensive stats, and his age as major positives. They see him as exactly the type of player United have been missing. These fans also like the fact that Anderson is English and won't need time to adapt to the Premier League. They want United to sign players who can make an immediate impact. The concerns. Other fans worry about the price tag and whether Anderson is really good enough for a club like United. They point out that he's only had one good season and question whether that's enough to justify such a big investment. Some supporters would prefer United to go for a more established name or to look for bargains in other leagues rather than paying premium prices for Premier League players. The Amorim factor. One key element in this potential transfer is what Ruben Amorim thinks of Anderson. The Portuguese manager will have the final say on whether United pursue this deal. System fit. Amorim's tactical system relies heavily on having a strong defensive midfielder who can break up play and start attacks. Anderson's skill set seems perfect for this role. The manager has already shown he's not afraid to make tough decisions about players. If he believes Anderson is the right fit for his system, he'll push the club to make the signing happen. Development potential. Amorim also has a good track record of improving young players. At his previous clubs, he's helped several players take their game to the next level. Anderson is exactly the type of player who could benefit from working with Amorim. The manager's coaching could help him develop from a good Premier League player into a top-class midfielder. The January window reality. It's worth remembering that January transfers are always more difficult than summer deals. Clubs don't want to sell their best players halfway through the season, and prices are usually higher. Timing challenges. Forest will be even more reluctant to sell Anderson in January because they'll need him for the second half of their season. Losing a key player in the middle of the campaign could hurt their Premier League position. United might need to make an offer that's simply too good to refuse. That could mean paying well over the market value, but sometimes that's what it takes to get your man. Alternative plans. United should also have backup options in case the Anderson deal doesn't work out. They can't afford to go into another transfer window with just one target, as that rarely works out well. The club needs to identify several midfield options and be prepared to move for any of them if the opportunity arises. Looking ahead, what this means for United's future. If United do manage to sign Anderson, it could be the start of a major transformation of their midfield. Combined with other signings over the next few windows, the team could look very different by the start of next season. Building for the future. Anderson fits perfectly with United's apparent strategy of signing young, talented players who can grow with the club. At 22, he could be a key player for many years to come. This type of signing makes much more sense than trying to fix problems with short-term solutions. United need to think about the next 5 to 10 years, not just the next few months. Setting a precedent. How United handle the Anderson transfer could also set the tone for future deals. If they show they're willing to pay top dollar for the right player, it sends a message that they're serious about competing at the highest level again. On the other hand, if they miss out because they won't pay the asking price, it might suggest they're still not fully committed to backing the manager in the transfer market. Conclusion. A transfer that could change everything. The potential signing of Elliot Anderson represents exactly the type of deal United should be making. Young, talented, Premier League proven, and filling a position of real need. Yes, the price will be high. Yes, there's always risk involved in any transfer. But sometimes you have to take calculated risks to move your club forward. Anderson has already shown he can perform at Premier League level. He's won England recognition. He has the work rate and mentality that United fans love to see. Most importantly, he could solve the midfield problems that have plagued the team for months. Will United actually make this deal happen? That remains to be seen. But if they're serious about challenging for major trophies again, signing players like Anderson is exactly what they need to do. Keep following United News for all the latest updates on this story and every other United transfer rumor. We'll be here to bring you the facts as they develop, helping you stay ahead of the game with reliable, trustworthy coverage. The January window promises to be exciting, and Anderson could be just the beginning. Here's hoping United can finally get the midfield reinforcements they desperately need. Come on, United. Make it happen.